Hey you guys, welcome back to the best night of the week. It's Life After Sports with me, Coach Sarah, and Josh Copeland. And I don't know about you, but I'm really excited for tonight's conversation. We have a very special guest that's going to come and join us here in just a couple of moments, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be an epic conversation tonight. So if you're catching us on the replay, make sure that you share this. And if you're catching us live, make sure you have your questions ready. But I'm going to go ahead and bring up Josh to the stage, and then we will announce a special guest that's going to be coming through. Hopefully you guys have had a good week so far. I can't believe it's Wednesday again. Hey, Josh.
What's going on, Sarah? How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing well. I can't wait to get into this conversation.
Me too.
I'm really excited.
It's been like Christmas morning all day for me, waiting for the countdown for this.
Yes, I'm so excited for Taj to hop on here. It's going to be great.
Same here. So before we bring him up, our special guest tonight is Taj Deshawn. He is the founder of ThriveAfterSports and the vice president of service and support at Self-Publish in 30 Days. And this has definitely been a long time coming, you guys. We've been wanting to have him here joining us live, and tonight is the night. So he's on his way up as we speak. There is the Taj Deshawn.
What's up, y'all? The dynamic duo.
What's
up, guys?
Loving it. How you doing, Taj?
I'm doing great. It's been one of those busy days, but all good things happening, so I can't complain. How you guys doing?
Yeah, doing good too. We're just saying we've been waiting for this conversation. It's finally the night.
Likewise, I've become a fan. I can never really catch them live because I'm usually eating dinner around this time, but I do watch the recording, so I've become a fan of checking you guys out. You guys are doing some great work, but you already knew that, you know.
Thanks, Taj. Appreciate that. We like our loyal fans that we have, and we get a pretty good crowd even live. So once again, for you guys that are just joining us, as always, if you have questions or comments, there's that question bubble that you'll see below, and if you want to contribute to the conversation, please feel free to do so. But basically tonight, you guys are like a fly on the wall, which is what I love about these conversations. And this is Taj, you are our second guest that we've ever had on here. I know we've been waiting to have you on here, but just getting ready to start with the conversation for tonight. So we are talking about the journey tonight. So we've talked a lot about vision, goal setting, having a plan. Those have been the conversations, the topic Josh and I have really tapped into in the last couple of weeks. But tonight in particular is talking about the journey, because I think this is a step that a lot of people kind of trip over, because it's usually, okay, I want to do this and I want to get to this end point, but we really don't take the time to process what the journey is and really enjoy the ride, because sometimes it's not very enjoyable, but really if you look at what's going on in the process, I think there's a lot of beauty that can be discovered from it. So yeah, I definitely want to start the topic tonight with that. So let's kind of think about, even when you were playing as an athlete and even into the businesses that you do now, because everybody, has their business. And by the way, Taj, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what you do with ThriveAfterSports before we get started here too?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. Otherwise, I might take up the whole 30 minutes. ThriveAfterSports is a coaching program that I started in 2018. So I help athletes one-on-one and group coaching. And it's also become a podcast and a book, and I'm going into schools and speaking. So really the whole goal, just like what you guys do, is to help athletes transition powerfully into the next stages of their lives. So that's what I'm doing with ThriveAfterSports, and I know we'll get into it, but it definitely has been a journey and a lot of ups and downs, as I'm sure you guys can relate to. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Oh yeah, no, Josh and I talked a lot about our journey and process, and I think that's what's so cool is like all of us, even though we were on different paths, within our journey, there's so many similarities, especially having that athlete background, that we can definitely relate to. So yeah, so let's talk a little bit, and feel free, Taj, it's definitely, anybody can chime in. There's no, designated series that we're going through with this, but let's just talk about first, like, your journey from being that athlete, that D1 athlete, because we all play D1 sports, to how you got to where you were now, and a little bit about, what was it? Did you have something particularly in mind that you knew you wanted to accomplish? What was your process transitioning out? And let's talk a little bit about the journey. So anybody that wants to start with that one.
Yeah, I didn't. Oh, go ahead, Josh. Oh, okay,
No,
okay.
no, no. This you, bro. This you. Go ahead.
I get guest privileges. All
Yes,
right,
sir.
I'll take
Yes,
them.
sir.
For me, like just from being an athlete, just to your point, Sarah, I had no clue. Just like, I know that's something that we all talk about. So in terms of what I wanted to do, I was just like, okay, I need to get some money. That was my only focus at the time. And, what I always talk about is that, of course we all have bills to pay and things we need to do. And I always tell people, specifically athletes, just do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do. But for me, the thing was, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I was just doing what I had to do for a long time. But, and I know this is something that we all talk about with athletes. That's why we're even here, is that if you figure out what you actually want to do, and more importantly, how you can serve, that's the most important thing. It's not just about what you want to do, but what are you good at and how can you serve other people? And I say that because, some people that might say, well, I want to be a rapper. I'm not telling you to give up on your dreams, but if nobody wants to buy your music or come see your show, I know I'm hurting somebody's feelings right now, but just because you want to do it doesn't mean that that's something that people are willing to pay for. That's why you're here on this earth. Not that you can't do that, but you have to find that thing that lights you up and that inspires other people. So my journey was rough after football, and it took me a lot of time to figure out that this is actually what I wanted to do. But then again, if I didn't go through those hard times, I wouldn't have realized I wanted to help other athletes get through some of those things that we all went through. So
Yeah, we had a question that popped up too. Like, what process do you have for discovering one's calling? So, did you go through a process with that, Taj?
For me personally, it was a lot of trial and error. But something I could just recommend off the top of my head is, if you're feeling like you don't know what your calling is, just number one, ask the people around you. Just kind of, I always recommend like asking parents or close friends or maybe a significant other. What are some ways that they see you serving in the world? Like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And what are some ways that they envision you serving? And you can kind of take those different things from the people who know you best. And then you can start to look at different routes you can go, not just career-wise, but what you want to do with your life. I always say that we're fortunate to be living through this time where you could customize your life. And another thing is that start to look at people who you admire, like whether you know them personally or, celebrities. Look at people who do things for a living, or just like, you might look at someone and be like, you know what, I like the way that guy is with people. I like the way that woman is with people. I like the way they carry themselves. I like what people say about this person, and I want to be someone like that. And so you can start to take bits and pieces. Like, we're all of a collection of things that we're inspired by. All of us sitting here today, we are who we are today because we learned from people, took the good with the bad, ate the meat, threw away the bones, and we're just trying to become more of ourselves every single day. So that's just some quick advice on that.
Yeah, and I think we're living in such a time where, like, social media, for example, like both of you guys, we have connected on here. Taj, you were actually one of the first people like I started following who was in athlete transition, and to be able to like collaborate with you now and run alongside, and same with Josh as well too. You guys were some of the first ones that I reached out with, and it just goes to show you like there's such power in being able to have these resources now to really tap into, what are the things that I do like to do? Who am I inspired by? Because I think that that's something to really hold, especially with your goals, is to have somebody modeling things that you want to do and what you want to amount to. And if you don't have that, you kind of get lost in the process without really surrounding yourself with the people who are like-minded. And I think that's kind of what happens in the transition as well too. Like as we're leaving our teammates in that close niche group that we've been with, we're all like-minded. We're trying to find ourselves in life after sports and surround ourselves with people who are like us, but it's hard to do. It's hard to do because, they're not within our communities necessarily, but we have virtual communities like this now. And I know like with Thrive After Sports, I know Josh with Learn to Cope and, me with Rebranded Athlete, like that's what we're really trying to do, is help people not only be associated with others that are like them, but help them along on the journey. And I think that's key too, because you can't go on any journey alone. You got to have that support system and rest stops along the way. And, those people who are going to be your cheerleaders on the side. Like if you're doing a marathon, you got people who are in the crowd kind of cheering you on as you go, because there's some points. And I think even like for me, starting even this business too, there's been some times where it's hard, you're in the middle middle of the game, you're in the middle of the marathon, and you need somebody to like push you or help you or cheer you on and remind you of what your why is and why you got started even in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that, sir. And Taj, man, I wanted to ask you, man. 'Cause I got some questions I'm going to ask you because I love what you do, man. It's the first time we really get to like, really sit down and chop it up for a second, man. But you talk about, doing what you have to do until you're able to do what you want to do. When did that moment click for you that you figured out, okay, this is what I want to do, and then I'm going to jump into it, right? Because I know, and then I have some follow-up questions, but like, when was that moment that you realized, okay, I want to help, I want to serve, I want to help athletes, and then how did you get started? Did you just look at kind of say, forget it, I'm just going to do it, or was there a process to it?
Man, I'm glad you asked that question. I thought you were going to ask me, why did we lose so bad when Stony Brook played Buffalo and you guys whooped up on the team? I thought that's where you were going with that.
No. I was going to leave that one out. But
okay. It seemed like a setup. I was like, oh, here we go.
I wasn't going to set you. I was
only a sophomore, man. There was only so much I could do. But
yeah. Y'all were solid, though. Y'all were solid. Sidebar, but y'all were really solid.
Yeah, sorry. Sidebar, man. But yeah, okay. So the moment for me was two things, and I always tell people I like to be transparent with this. Like I always tell people the reason I started doing this is 50% selfish and 50% selfless. I did it because I felt that I was called to be doing more in life, and I knew for me personally, I'm not saying this is the case for everybody. Well, obviously it is for all of us here, but for me personally, I knew just sitting at a corporate job and just collecting a paycheck every 2 weeks, and retire at 60 and get the gold watch. I knew that wasn't going to work for me early on, but I struggled to find a way to get out of it. And I thought about doing all kinds of stuff, like being a personal trainer or doing network marketing. I was like, anything that's going to take me out of the 9-to-5 lifestyle. And I'm glad that I didn't go any of those routes, because it wasn't until this was revealed to me. It was like 2017 going into 2018. I had a lot of guys that I played with at Stony Brook, actually, and even some guys I grew up with in high school. I had a good job. I was making good money. And so I had people reaching out to me like, Taj, how you doing this, man? Like, I'm still struggling to find my way. And I'm like, let me actually do some research around what's available for former athletes. And of course, it's much better now. But man, 2017, there might be an article. There's like I remember seeing this blog on the NCAA website that was just like, this is how you prepare for a job interview, And that's, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's better than nothing, but still it doesn't address the underlying issues that we all talk about today. And so at that point, I was like, all right, I'm going to get serious, put together some curriculum. And I took that leap and just decided to dive into it full speed. I didn't know anything about business. Not that I have it all figured out today, but just went completely broke. I ended up having to move back in with my parents. I'm thankful to them for letting me move back in because they believed in me at that time. And it's one of those things where back to your original question, the reason I knew I was serious about it is because I was willing to go through all that. I was willing to move back in with my parents it was almost 2 years, man. So, I just moved back out 2 years ago, and I'm almost 30 now. So, to be in my late 20s, I'm 30, almost 31, but to be living at home in my late 20s, pursuing this, I knew that it was serious. Matter of fact, last thing, and then I'll stop hogging the mic.
No, you're good.
A week after I moved back in with my parents, when I first started ThriveAfterSports in 2018, a week after I moved back in, I was on a coaching call with the athlete that I was working with for free before any of the universities were paying money for any of this type of work, coaching this guy for free. And I get a knock on my door, and my dad says, Taj, they're taking your car. So I got my car repossessed. And I go outside, and they're taking my car away, and I'm watching them drive off with my car. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, this is going to make for a great story one day. And I went back in the house and did the coaching call, finished up the coaching call. So that's when I knew I was serious about it.
I absolutely love that, because I think that that's so true. If you're willing to sacrifice it all, then that's when it's what you're meant to, and then your perspective change on it, right? Like most people would have probably chased a dude down the street, tried to get him at a stoplight, you know what I'm saying? Like get the car, and he was just like, you know what? It's gonna be a funny story about 5 years. I'm making all this money, and I bought a new car. It's gonna be hilarious. I'm gonna tell it on the podcast.
Don't matter.
It doesn't matter. So it changes your perspective. So I love that. But I know you talked about, man, and I want to get into like what was your mindset and how did you push through? Because that's humbling, that's embarrassing. You know what I mean? Like, you left a job where you're making money and then you had to move back in. And you also said that, like, one time, like, your wife was, or she your wife now, she was paying.
Almost. Yeah.
Almost. Okay. Your fiance at the time when y'all were dating, she was paying for your rent. And I know, just as like a man, that does something to you, right? Because you have to provide. So when you had to take the back seat to chase your dreams, kudos to her, because that's very, very, that's a very strong person to see that in you and to be willing to do that. But, like, what was your mindset? How did you push through all that stuff with getting your car repo, not having money, moving back in with your parents to see the vision down the road?
Man, I think the first thing is that I knew that because this was something that was needed, just, that athletes needed this because I have been through it personally. I mean, that's why we all do what we do, right? Because we've been
Right.
through it personally. So we know that this is a need, and that makes us qualified to help others because we've been through it. So I'm like, okay, despite all this that's going on, that doesn't change the fact that people need this. And I know the longer I stick with it and the better I get at it, and the more I find ways to serve, only good things can happen. And for anybody who's listening right now, like, whether you're religious or not, like, it really doesn't matter what you believe in. I think at some point you have to acknowledge that there's always something going on that's bigger than us. And so if you can just trust whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, if you can just trust that thing and make sure you're living in a way that is, if you always had somebody watching you and you live in a way that's pleasing, not that I'm perfect, but, I try every day to lean into that higher being. And I feel like if you believe in whatever God or source or the universe has in store for you and you stay consistent with what you feel called to do, despite the obstacles, like, I think those obstacles are tests. And I think that's what you're really getting at. I think that's what your question is about, Josh. Like,
Yeah.
those are tests, and you pass the test by continuing to push through. Now, sometimes I feel like at the end of the day, you might have to give up on something. And I think if that's a real conversation you have to have with yourself. Am I giving up on this because it's too hard, or do I really feel like it's time to let this go and move on to something else?
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful. It's kind of like the question that came in too right now. What do you tell someone on their journey whose confidence has been rocked? How to regain their positive confidence, and should they change direction or stay on the same path that they began their journey? Yeah, it's kind of what you said too. It's one of those things where I think that's where you have to do a lot of inner work, right? And really trust, what it is that you're going for. And if it's something you truly believe in, like you did, Taj, seeing it to, come to fruition and come to life, like, you're going to be willing to take the sacrifices, taking, the car that's repossessed, investments, whatever it's going to be to get there, and know that in the end, it's going to make an impact. And when it's something that's bigger than you, I think that's when that really drives you to continue on the journey that you have. And yeah, maybe there's other things that you kind of do along the way to kind of help you with that journey in particular. But when you have that why dangling in front of you, like the carrot, I think that's what keeps motivating us to keep going forward.
No doubt. I love what you said too about just how it's almost like, I don't know if the person who asked that question was an athlete or not, but I'm going to assume they are, about their confidence being rocked. But even if that person isn't an athlete, like, of course we got to tie it back into athletics, right? I feel like there are times when you were playing that your confidence got rocked. I'm gonna bring it back to when Josh's team was whooping up on my team. I got beat on a couple plays, but at the end of the day, I'm sorry, Josh, I gotta do it, man. I gotta do it. At the end of the day, like, when we were all competing athletically, like, your confidence gets rocked if you get scored on, no matter what point you play, or you miss a shot or whatever the case may be. But that doesn't stop you from playing the next game or showing up to practice the next day. So I just feel like if you take the same approach in life, which is why this mindset that we all share is bigger than athletes. Yes, we're all athletes, but just to the everyday people, if you can adopt the mindset of an athlete, of a competitor, and be like, okay, I'm not where I want to be right now, or I got rocked by life, but I'm going to get back up and play the next play. And it sounds cliche, and it might sound cheesy to some people, but if you really apply that, like, don't just hear it and be like, yeah, I've heard that before. But if you actually apply it, and every time you get knocked down, you get back up, then you'll find yourself in a great spot in life. So,
yeah, I love that, man. And I'll just to add, I would say, a lot of times we get our confidence, we get frustrated because it seems like we're doing a lot of work and we're not making progress, right? It seems like the journey is like stopped, we're not moving, but you really are. And there's two things. I think it's a book. It's called When God Winks, and it's about there's small things around your journey that things happen, and He shows you that it's the right way to go. Right, there's certain things along the journey that just maybe small things that, and I want to say it's a book, but I'll be sure on that. But it's about the process. It's about the journey. So when you have those small things happen, it's just a little wink to say keep going, right? And that builds your confidence. And then the last thing I'll say, just because you haven't done it doesn't mean you can't do it. Right. And I think that's where we get confused on is, okay, it hasn't been done yet. Oh, I can't do it at all. No, you can. Sometimes it just takes a little longer. And then the final thing is, don't compare your timeline to somebody else's timeline. Yep. Right. That'll be the thing. Because a lot of times we get caught up, okay, this person's younger than me. This person just started and he's moving faster than me. Or this person, she's making way more money than I am. Well, that's their journey, right? That's their timeline for things. You have your own timeline. So if you start comparing your timeline to other people's timeline, there's always going to be somebody doing better than you. And a lot of times we always look at the people doing better because we want inspiration. So when you're constantly looking at somebody doing better than you and you're comparing their timeline to yours, you're always going to fall short. You're always going to feel like you're not doing enough, right? So I think that have that mindset and just stay true to you and embrace the journey. That's all I would say.
Yeah, I love that too, Josh. And taking a step back, and I think sometimes even for me, like I forget to pause and see just how far I've come. Like look over your shoulder, even though like small progress, even if it's 10 minutes a day. Like when I was still a school principal trying to build this business on the side, it was, small little gains that amounted to greatness in the end, and where I could finally say like, hey, I'm ready to leave my corporate job to, pursue this. But it didn't start overnight. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up, and they're like, man, look at all these people having all this success, and they think it started just yesterday, but it's actually, they don't see the behind the scenes of what it took to actually get going in that direction. And not only that, but gain the momentum that you need. And I think that momentum is what still carries you when the times do get tough, and when you have to make those tough decisions. Do I keep going, or does the journey stop here? And a lot of times it's when we think we should stop and we take that one more step or that one more rep or that one more that's when you have the breakthrough. And I think for people that, to kind of take that away, it's like, don't give up on something just because it seems hard, 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, whatever it is. You are going to have probably in the beginning more days that aren't as great, but once you finally get over that hill, you're going to have a lot more greatness than what you had even expected. And I know that from you, Taj. I actually just listened to your podcast episode from this past week, and that's why I had to put it on on the stories. I was just, it struck a nerve with me, just inspiring, because you talked about in there, like, even how far you've come and working with Stony Brook now, the university that you actually went to, and being a huge part of that. Like, here's a question for you. When you first began this journey, was that a vision that you had, or was that something that appeared during the course of your journey?
It's a little bit of both. I think it's something that definitely appeared, and that's thanks to, number one, the hard work and the discipline and the consistency, like you were just talking about, and then a lot of great people. I see Darren Palmer, self-published in 30 days, just joined. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have a book right now. Would I have written a book eventually? Maybe, but I wouldn't have one right now. That's a fact. So I think when you talk about like going into speaking at schools and things like that, and you know me, I've shared this with you before, Sarah, I'm an introverted guy. I just when I first started, my vision was I just want to help athletes. I want to be in my room on the phone, coaching them one-on-one. And then that evolved into group coaching. And then that evolved into the podcast. And that evolved into running into Darren and self-published in 30 days and publishing the book. And that evolves into group projects, and that evolves into speaking. And so it's one of those things, and maybe I'll use this as a moment to give advice to anybody tuning in. It's like, when you start out on your journey, just be open to, it's not always going to turn out exactly how you may have planned it. And like you guys were both just saying, not even necessarily in the timing that you expected to happen either. But sometimes, even if it takes longer, it might turn out even greater than you expected, just by the people you meet or the things that happen. or the doors that open that you weren't even thinking of. So yeah, that's what I would say on that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I love that, man. And just for because you talked on this, cause I listened to your podcast. It's dope. If y'all at the
Thank you,
end,
man.
please
Yep.
plug it because it's really it's nice. You drop a lot of gems in there, man. But you talk about being consistent, and you talk about, and one thing that really struck me, you talk about being strategic, right? You talk about like you had your book, and but it got in the right hands because you were strategic about it. And can you talk a little bit about that? And from a business aspect, how important it to be strategic with your marketing, your advertising, what you're doing, and how can people start to be strategic with like networking and stuff?
You just brought up such a huge point. I want to start with this because just a minute ago, Josh, you were talking about not comparing yourself to people, but being inspired by where they're at. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
the type of person, if I see somebody doing something great, I'm not gonna be like, oh, they're so much better than me, and
Right.
I hope I can get. I'm gonna reach out to that person. I want to connect. Like I'll let them
Yes.
know straight up, hey, I want to be where you are. Can you help me? Like I'm that
Mhm.
type of person. So I think that if you have that mindset when you're being strategic just in business, because all business is how well can you connect and create situations and win-win situations with other human beings. That's what it comes down to. So being strategic in business is making the right moves, connecting with the right people, which I've had to learn, learn the hard way. I can't do everything by myself. Who can I connect with that's running in a similar direction? But me personally, like back to the books, I've always looked at it like I never wanted to get caught up on I'm just trying to sell a bunch of books, right? Because all it takes is like I've sold hundreds of copies of books by sending one free book to the right person and letting them know what I want to do. That free book that I sent, where most people might be like, man, I'm not going to send them a free book. It's $20. They got to buy it off my website. You
Yeah.
send them a free book. Next thing you know, they want to order hundreds of copies to share with their athletes. So I
Mhm.
just think it comes down to meeting with the right people and always trying to find win-wins. That's the best strategy I can give. Connect with the right people and find win-wins and always look for ways to build together so that it's not one-sided. Like there's something in it for you, there's something in it for me. Everybody's happy, and we're doing what we set out to do.
Yep. Build those relationships. It's huge.
It
Yeah,
really
We're here
is.
because of relationships. All of us are here because
exactly.
of the relationships we have. Like it's a beautiful thing. Like I look at what you two are doing on a weekly basis. This isn't something where you guys just like, you jump on here once in a blue moon. You said like once a week at this time we're gonna get on here and and help people and serve. And now you have this like imagine a year from now. That's like what you'll be at 60 something recordings, 70 something
Yep.
recordings at that point. So
I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, but that's what it starts with. It starts with doing something small like that amounts to greatness, right? Because we could be doing anything during this time. We could be having dinner. Josh, it's almost bedtime for you. Taj, you probably had dinner, or probably should have had dinner. It's about time for me to make dinner, but it's one of those things where it's like it's bigger than us, and I think that's what it goes back to. When you have that calling and when you have that fire lit under you, you will do whatever needs to be done to move it forward and move other people forward. And that's what Josh and I agreed on. We're like, hey, let's try this out and see what happens. And our hope is like at least somebody walks away with at least one nugget. And there's been tons of nuggets tonight, you guys. So I hope you have a basket full of stuff, especially Mr. Taj that's in dropping all these gems and stuff. But it's like it's one of those things, and I know all of us can attest to this too. Sometimes we hear things or we pop into a room or whatever it is, and we hear that one thing that can be the game changer for somebody's life, and that's what we hope to do here. And it's man, I'm loving this conversation tonight. It's crazy. The other thing I was going to mention too in the podcast as well, and I believe you titled it "Don't Quit," right? Or
mhm.
"Don't Give Up," "Don't Quit," something like that. And it just goes to show you, like, when was it for you, Taj, that you wanted to quit, but you decided that you needed to continue to push forward? And what does it look like now? Like when you went to the post office and you dropped off all those books, like how is that now?
It's crazy. I mean, what's crazy is the stories that I shared about having to move back in or getting my car recolored and all that. none of those moments ever made me want to quit. But there are moments when, this may sound crazy, but I've honestly never thought about quitting. And I don't say that like, you know, I'm special or something, because I've quit a lot of things in my life. I never before I started Thrive After Sports, I was sharing this with you the other day, Sarah. I never had a job for more than a year. Like, I don't think I say that maybe a year was the maximum I say to any job, just because I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. You know, and I think I wouldn't be here if I didn't do that, because this is the one thing that I could be consistent with in my life, aside from playing football all those years. But I would just say to anybody tuning in, like, you always have to question, because those thoughts of doubt or wanting to give up as human beings affects all of us. And I think that you always have to question, and I talked about this on the episode, you always have to question why you're wanting to quit or why you're wanting to throw in the towel. And then I think if you really take some time to reflect, instead of just being like, oh, this is too much, I'm overwhelmed, I'm frustrated, this isn't working out, I started this business last week, I'm not a millionaire yet, I give up on this. Like, instead of taking that, be like, okay, let me check in with myself, like you were talking about at the beginning, Sarah. Like, let me check in with myself and be like, why do I actually want to quit? Can I honestly say I've given this my all? Is it time to make a shift? Is it time to make a pivot? I just think those are things you have to ask yourself before. You know, we live in an instant gratification culture where people are quick to give up on things without giving it a fair shot, or more importantly, giving themselves a fair shot. And I think all of us on here today, we're here because we bet on ourselves, and it's not a one and done. You just don't say I bet on myself. You wake up every day and you bet on yourself every single day.
Yes, facts. That's so true. You really have to, and I love that, because you really are. It's like you play poker. You're going all in every day, right? You're going all in every single day on yourself, on your dream, on your vision, on what you want to do. And yes, sometimes you're gonna lose, and then somehow you get a little bit more money, and then you go all in again. Right? Somehow you get a little. Somehow it doesn't, it doesn't, and this is the last thing I'll say about this is, you don't have to have it all figured out to start, and you don't have to have it all figured out along the way. Some things just happen, and you go to your point, Taj, where it may not happen in the way that you think it should, but it's going to happen in the way that it should. You see what I'm saying? Like we got to get out our own way, because we have this idea of, oh, I want it to happen this way, and this is how it's going to be, and this is what I'm going to think of, and then you start, but you get in your own way sometimes, because now you're limiting yourself from all the real possibilities that are out there to get what you need to be done. So a lot of times, don't think it should happen this way. Let it organically happen, and you'll go a lot further if you're open to that. And I think that that's the athletic mindset. Is a lot of times we're not too prideful to like suck at something again, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like we're not too prideful to be bad at something the first time, because we understand that with our mindset and our ability, we can learn anything. So if we just put the right amount of time in, we can learn it. And I think that takes us a lot further in a lot of places than other people, because we just had I'll start something quick and be like, okay, give me a month and I'll be better than what I was today. Give me 2 months, I'll be better. And then you just start building that way. So that's the last thing I'm going to say on that.
No, were you going to say something, Sarah?
No, I saw you chime in. Go ahead, Tosh.
Oh, I just wanted, because you made me think of something, Josh, when you were talking about how you don't have to have it figured out to start. I love what you said, man. And that's something I talk about a lot too. Like, some people like us, we had that mindset going in. Like, okay, we were freshmen at our sport at one time, or my first year of Pop Warner, I played football. When I started playing football at 10, I wasn't good. I was scared to hit, and then I became one of the hardest hitters on the team that same year. So in life, sometimes when we're done playing our sport, we look at it like, oh, well, I don't want to look dumb, or I don't want to look bad at this thing. Versus if you can just be like, well, I sucked, like you said, Josh, at other things when I first started them. And then what you said about you don't have to have everything figured out to start, that's a huge gem. Please don't let that go over your head for anybody listening to this. There are so many people, even with like podcasts, for example. I was talking to a guy, I've been telling him for 6 months he needs to start a podcast. He was like, well, I gotta soundproof my walls and get the headphones and get the mics, and you want to spend $8,000 on the setup before you record it. When I just recorded a podcast episode of my car the other day, holding my phone like this, and hundreds of people listen to it. So like, at the end of the day, I just had to say that, because when you talked about you don't have to figure it out, have it all figured out to start, I almost brought out the collection plate. out here. You know what I mean?
But
I
it's,
almost had to.
it's real because I hear stories like it, and we all have it though. We all have that moment where we're like, man, I'm just gonna go for this, and I'm gonna figure it out as it goes because there's something that's in you that's calling you, and at a certain point, it's gonna be too big to ignore. Right? It's going to be too big to
Absolutely.
ignore. And then you're going to have to be like, because for me, like I was at a job and me and this person, we got along great for 3 years. And then right when it was time for me to move and move on, it just got real rocky. And we never had a disagreement, but it was just, okay, we're going to shake things up and you need to go, right? You see what I'm saying? And sometimes, but it got so big that I couldn't ignore it. And it could be in different facets. But when it's something's calling you, you can't ignore it. And then if you keep ignoring it, God's going to move some stuff out of the way to make sure you can do what you're called to do.
Yeah. Start before you're ready. That's exactly what came to mind with me.
Yes.
Start before you're ready and just do it. And I think a lot of times the path that is meant will show up. We may think it's this path or that path, but the one that's meant to be will actually show up for you, and things will start to fall in place. And yeah, there's going to be a couple of roadblocks, but I think that's what we're best at, especially as former athletes. Like, we know how to get through challenges and we know how to figure things out and be the newbie. If you don't know all the answers, surround yourself with other people who can help you find the way. And I think that's how all of us are here today. We
Exactly.
did it because we just started. We didn't know what we were doing, but we figured it out, and now it's something that's powerful, coming to life. So, man, you guys, it's already been like 35 minutes.
That's crazy. I just looked at what
No.
time it was.
I told you. I know some of you have, you got to go to bed and have dinner and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, Taj, I'd love for you to do a plug in here, especially with,
Yes.
the things you have going for your coaching programs. I know you got another book coming out, so let's talk about all that right now.
Yeah, let me start with this. I'll just say, go to TajDeshaun.com, or obviously some people might be listening to the recording. So if you're on IG, just click the links in my bio. But TajDeshaun.com is the hub for everything. So you can get the books there. You can listen to the podcast there. It has the links to all the different podcasts, links on Apple and Spotify. And yes, we have some books right now that we're looking for former athletes to sign up for. Co-author books, Athlete's an Entrepreneur, and also Six Figure Athlete is closing out on enrollment. The reason behind those books, I always tell people, we're looking to show the next generation of athletes you do not have to be LeBron James or Magic Johnson to become an entrepreneur and to be successful as an entrepreneur. Athletes make great entrepreneurs. We're all proof of that, and all the people we're affiliated with. And so that's what those books are about. If you want to tell your story, reach out. As far as the coaching, I've worked very hard for this over the years to set up sponsorships and scholarships for athletes. So I'm partnered with a few different nonprofits. Shout out to Athlete Soul. Shout out to Athlete Transition Services. If you know an athlete who needs some transition services, reach out to me. Reach out to Dr. Sarah. Reach out to Josh. That's the great thing about it. What we've created, all of us, and countless other people we can name, we've created a community and an ecosystem of former athletes who are here to catch you and say, we're here to support you and get you through this transition. And that didn't exist for any of us. And that's a beautiful thing that we've been able to do that. And we're just getting started. That's what's even more exciting to me. It's still super early. The DJ didn't even show up to the party yet. You know what I mean? Like, it's so early.
Love it.
For sure.
This is a party you guys don't want to miss. You want to be invited to. It's definitely cutting edge with all this. And it's just sitting here reflecting and seeing this vision come to life. You guys, like, even Josh, I don't know about you, but when we started this, we're like, hey, maybe at some point, we'll get some of these guests on here. And I think even for me, this vision is, it came into fruition to something bigger than what I even thought. So Taj, thank you for being part of this on our journey with us. And, I know that there's definitely power in numbers, and the movement that we have going here, we're all in this together. It's not just one of us, striving for the same goal. Like, we definitely have to all work together. And for those of you out there watching, even if it's the replay right now, I hope something gravitated to you tonight that any one of us spoke on, and in particular Taj's story, because it's remarkable. I remember when I first crossed it, I was like, man, I got to connect with this guy. Like, he has just so much that he has done, and because of you, Taj, I'm a first-time author. So
Let's go.
Yeah,
Soon to be 2 and
third
3
time
time
author.
author. Yeah. 3 or 4 right around the corner.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
thank you guys for having me.
Josh, as always, thank you for running on this journey with me. I know we have so much fun every Wednesday, and this is our opportunity to always catch up and talk about exactly what we love talking about.
Yes, yeah, no, Sarah, thank you. Like I said, thank you. You do amazing work. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this. Taj, man, appreciate you. You are so dope of a person, man, and you're so inspirational just with everything you have going on. And so I hope people really go follow you, listen to your podcast. It's really dope. And just buy his book because I'm about to order some right now. I'm about to order some off of here. I'm ordering something.
Look, yep.
Yes, because I truly think that you can learn from anybody at any stage, right? And so no matter what situation is, you can always pull some gems from somebody and learn from what they got to do and do something a little bit better. So I learned a lot. I took my notes. I got paper right here. I took a lot of notes, Todd. So
Hey,
appreciate you.
me too.
Yep, it's like school Wednesday nights.
That's right. That's right. Hey, thank you guys.
No
It's been
problem.
great. I appreciate you having me and let me join the dynamic duo. How many? I'm the second guest, but how many have you guys done total? It's like 15 now, maybe.
No, actually, we just started doing the guests, so it's once a month right now. Is what we're doing until more. Yeah, But
it seems like you guys are here every week.
Yeah, we're here every week, but not with the guests. So it's usually just
total.
Oh, how many have we done in total? Oh man, I think we're up to like 15 now.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
That's 15 straight weeks. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yep, we haven't missed one. Even when we had to reschedule, we always made it earlier. So we're here. This is church, so we will be putting out the collection.
Next time you guys have me, when this is like, when this is like a year from now and you got 1,000 people watching this live, I'm gonna have a prop collection plate. Mark my words. I'm gonna bring a collection. I'm gonna just hold it up to the screen every time.
We love it.
That's what we like to hear. Oh man. Well, thank you guys so much. And thank you guys in the audience, for contributing. You guys had great questions and comments tonight. We appreciate you guys showing up. And those of you on the replay, if you guys have any questions and you want to connect with either one of us, send us a DM on Instagram. We'd love to connect with you guys. And once again, we'll be back next week, Josh and I, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8:30 if you're in Josh's time zone on Life After Sports. Take care, you guys. Have a great night. Thanks, Taj. Bye, Josh.
Thank you, guys. Bye,
See ya.
everybody.